you believe exactly what you're getting. If you believe you're getting this, that's why you're getting it. So if we can look at certain things we call these filters that have happened in your past and can release those, then you can move on without even realizing that they were there.
"83% of Americans identify as not very happy, which can hold you back and negatively affect your relationships and your business. On this podcast, we discuss the proven steps to happiness so you can restore balance and rekindle your joy."
Welcome to another edition of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. I hope you're having a fantastic day. We always bring exceptional guests on here, but we've got a special one today. Shawn, welcome to the show. How are you, my friend?
Doing awesome. Thanks for having me here, Brad.
Man, you've got such a great story and you've changed so many lives. I actually met you through your wife that we're in a mastermind together. And she's like, oh my gosh, when I told her what I did, she's like, oh my gosh, you got to talk to my husband, Shawn. And so you and I talked months ago. I actually forgot to get back to you, but we talked months ago, had an amazing conversation. I was like, oh my gosh, you do bring so much that I've got to get you on the How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs podcast to share all of your knowledge and your story. So welcome, excited to get started. We jump right in on these things. We like to give a ton of value. So when we talked, again, months ago, you talked about anything in life is your approach to it. And that achieving happiness and financial success is simple, not easy. Can you expand on how our daily choices impact our success and our happiness?
I mean, if you're waking up to an alarm and you're going, hit snooze, right there it started. But it also starts right before you go to sleep. What are you listening to? What are you thinking about? Because our subconscious is really interesting on how it wants to reset and work on things. If you're the type of person that just leaves the TV on, all that information that's being played is going into your subconscious. So if you want to be ahead in the morning, listen to something positive. So when you wake up, you've got total control of how you're going to step into that day. And people are like, oh, well, like here come the excuses. So what I really explain to people is you've got a choice right when you wake up. If you're in a rush, that's your choice. If you want to give yourself extra time, that's your choice. Why is it simple? Because I wake up and I'm like, okay, what do I got to do? I got to get my daughter for school right now. I got to get the animals ready. So my shoes are there. I'm not running around going, oh, where's my shoe? Oh, the dog's barking. It's a simple system. Now, if they're not in the right place, it's like trying to find your car keys. You're running around the house going, where are my car keys? Find a place, know where it goes. And that's the same thing with your daily schedule and your attitude. Find a place and where you want to start. And that's where it all begins from.
So everyone has the same 24 hours in a day, right?
Exactly.
Why is it that some people are just insanely busy all the time and other people are just like chill, right? It's probably because choices, as you mentioned that word, and priorities, right?
Yes. And also, if someone ever tells you they're busy, they're just too busy for you. Because if the right person calls, they'll find time. And busy basically is disorganized and giving up sometimes too much time to other people and other things that they're not taking care of themselves. And what happens when someone's busy? I'll get to that thing later. Later never comes because of the system they've set up. They're constantly busy.
Do you know, Shawn, for 47 years of my life, I have a TV in my bedroom, a nice widescreen mounted on the wall. And it was part of my routine. I would not go to bed without watching the 10 o'clock news. And sometimes the 11 o'clock news. And one of the things I did in the last 3 years is I cut out all news. The only news I get is if my friends text me or if I'm posting something on social media and something pops up. And man, I don't know how much effect that has had on me, but my TV in my bedroom now only comes on if there's like a major golf event or something. Like I've changed, and what a difference it made not going to sleep with that negative shit. And then I'd wake up in the morning. First thing I do is I turn on the TV. So negative, negative, negative. I'm driving the other day and I wanted to know, it was actually during the winter. So it's probably 6 months ago. And I wanted to know what the weather was. And I turned on, actually I didn't. I put on YouTube, actually the 10 o'clock news, which I always watched, thinking I could get the news for the snow or whatever was coming. And damned if it wasn't, this judge said that of the 30 years she sat on the bench, it was the worst sexual molestation case. And I'm like, oh my God. I turned it right off. I didn't listen to the news. And I'm like, this is why I don't listen to the news.
Exactly. Well, again, remember, their shock and awe system to our nervous system. So if it was all positive things, people are like, So it's all about shocking your system. And the best way to shock someone's system is over anger or fear or division. And the news stations and everything that's trying to get your attention is using certain techniques that I've learned in hypnosis on how to distract you so you're paying attention to what they're doing. But when you really look at the underlying causes of it, you're like, oh, wow, that's just so juvenile. Because look at this, not over there, and we're going to slide this by you. It's all sleight of hand. And you have to decide, are you going to participate in it or not? And by you turning off the TV and not watching it, you checked out and said no. And then when you turn it on, it's like, oh my God, it's so much more evasive in front of us because we're not used to it.
Yeah, Shawn, I mean, you know this likely because you do this type of work, right? The TV is similar to a vodka bottle, is similar to porn online. It's a distraction from the way that we feel. And for so much of my life, I didn't feel great. And that was just, number one, it was a distraction, but it was also like, look how bad the world is. And, I'm against this group if they didn't agree with me. So it's, there's not a whole lot great to say about it. So just if you watch a lot of news, you watch a lot of TV, you may want to, this one might be a good time for you to go take the self-love quiz. We have a 3-minute self-love quiz, bradchandler.com/quiz. Take it. And if you score lack of self-love or mild self-love, and you're watching a bunch of TV could be one of your many vices. So anyway, not to get us distracted, but do yourself a favor and your family, go take that quiz real quick. And that might be the first step in a journey that forever changes your life and relationships and health. So Shawn, you have a really incredible story and you do some amazing work now. Let's jump into that. Tell us about Shawn and his story and the kind of work that you're doing now.
Well, I'm actually going to add a few things to it you might not be aware of. So we'll talk about this. So my background got started in wanting to exercise so I wouldn't get picked on because I was young in high school. So I started there. And then when got really interested in it, said, okay, what can I do with this? I can go to college and become a physical therapist, but I didn't have a 4.0 average at the time. So I went to massage therapy school and really got to understand that it's not just physical touch where tension is, it's also mental, emotion, and memory that are stored in our bodies, which I never knew of. So I'm like, ooh, what's this interesting correlation? So from there, I got into personal training. And with personal training, there are times where people only show up because they have an appointment. And I'm like, okay, how do I get people to show up on their own and work past their limitations? So I'm like, coaching. I'll get into doing some life coaching back then because that's all there was. And I got people to do things that are extraordinary beyond what they believe or believed at the time were possible. So say a gentleman wanted to do a Tough Mudder race, which is, 12 miles, 24 obstacles. He goes and then does a 24-hour version of it. Then I've got an athlete competitive soccer player on UNC women's soccer team, makes the national team and goes and wins a gold medal in Australia.
Wow.
And I'm going, what is the reason why these people push themselves beyond their limits? And you have to ask them questions. They have a goal. They have an intention to do it for themselves, not because they have to, because they choose to. And the CEOs and the entrepreneurs that I was working with, to our clients, are like, man, what you're providing is so much different because you're opening up our eyes and ears to different possibilities of what we can do, not just in our business, but in our lives to make it better. And then my daughter was born. And the reason I'm bringing this up is when I was 32, I was diagnosed with testicular cancer and had Lance Armstrong's doctor. They told me I'd never have children. So when my wife and I get married, we're like, hey, let's see if we can do it. Did some holistic things. Bingo, she gets pregnant. Like miracle, I never thought I'd be a dad. So she's born. And I'm like, I don't feel like I want to work so many hours anymore at 5 a.m. I've got this coaching certification. So before we move to California, I'm like, hey, my buddy's like, let's do a Tough Mudder race. Now, his background is Delta Force crazy. I blew the tendon that's above my left knee called a quad tendon, and all those muscles went flying up my leg. So then I'm like, called my buddy up. He's the head orthopedic surgeon for the UNC football team. He's like, yeah, you're pretty much screwed. I'll get you in. Does this major surgery. I'm back at work in 10 days. Like, this is the worst knee injury you can have, but I had to. Now I'm hobbling around. No one has an excuse why they're not coming to the gym because they see me working out, upper body, doing what I can do. We move. Because of my knee, I was having to put extra weight on my right hip. Now, I'm not personal training. I'm just coaching full time for this company. Get a personal trainer myself. He's like, man, we've worked so much. Your hip's screwed up. You get your back. Go get checked. I had to get a hip replacement. I'm like, seriously? So I get that done. So now my hip moves better. My knee's moving better. And we move back to Florida. My wife leaves that coaching company, and so do I. We start our own thing here in Florida. Everything's going well. She's doing group programs. I'm helping her out. I've got my one-on-one clients. And then about 3 years ago, we're going to the gym, and I'm like, man, something's wrong. I don't feel right. Let's just go home. So we go home, and I'm like, just take me to the ER. Now, this is during COVID, right? So you can't go in, someone with you. So I had to go in by myself. I'm like, something's not right. And, there's people in there hacking and coughing. I tell them my symptoms. It's just my thumb hurts, and I've got a chest pain up here, right? They're like, ooh, admit you. I'm like, okay, what's going on? I'm having a heart attack. Now the weird part is, now that I look back, 3 years ago, I was having symptoms of this. But because my brain is going to push me and drive me, I didn't pay attention to it. So they put 2 stents in. I'm like, okay. Now what do I do? Eat. Well, okay, you eat healthy. Take these pills. Why? It's cholesterol. I'm like, 50% of people who have normal cholesterol still have heart attacks. Well, just do what we say. And I'm like, well, if I talk to 7 different doctors, would I get different answers? They're like, yeah. I'm like, so how do I know you're right? Now, again, I question things because you're an expert area. I want to know if there's other things I can do, which I do, and everything's working well. So then about a month and a half ago, threw my back out. I'm like, okay, this sucks. So I'm laying down for a couple of weeks, trying to get better. Finally go to a physical therapist. They're working on my inner thigh. It's killing me. My back pain up in my upper, left shoulder is hurting. So I'm like, forget this, Megan. Take me to the urgent care. It's a great one. They got a CT scanning machine. I go in there. They're like, man, yeah, it's not muscle. You've got pneumonia. I'm like, what? Like, I'm not coughing. I don't have a fever. They're like, no, you've got pneumonia. So they give me a drug. I'm like, okay. So I'm still not feeling great, walking around, a little tired. So finally, I'm like, man, I'm just going to go back and get checked. Now, remember, I'm still going to all these amazing events, doing stuff with my daughter. Pain's still not coming away. I'm like, fine, I'll go back. And I'm like, he's like, we got to check you again. I'm like, okay. Comes back, he goes, you're not leaving. I go, what do you mean? He goes, we're starting on a heparin drip. You've got pulmonary embolisms. I'm like, what? So you got an embolism in each lung. I'm like, wow. They order an ambulance. I get in the ambulance. They send me over to the ER. They got a bed waiting for me. They're like, okay, any other areas? My leg hurts. They scan it. I got blood clots in my leg. They're like, we got to run all these tests and do all this stuff. I'm like, okay. Their heart diet is worse than I normally eat. And this is crazy because I'm home in 2 days after this. And they're like, you just got to take this drug. They went behind my knee with a catheter, sucked out the blood clots in my leg. They didn't tell me how bad this pain was going to be. Like, it was worse. It was the worst pain I've ever felt in my life. So it took me 2 weeks to walk normally, couldn't work out, which I get. So when they put you on a drug, your body actually absorbs the blood clot itself. The drug doesn't get rid of the blood clot, which is interesting. And then they give you all these side effects of all these drugs, the one drug. And I'm like, okay, there's got to be a different way. So I'm doing different things in conjunction with what they're saying. But through all this, I questioned the quote expert. I did things they told me that wouldn't work and shouldn't work and worked exceptionally well. And what I realized, like, I'm doing videos when I had my heart attack and this latest thing, and people are like, why are you doing this? I said, because it's out of my control. What am I supposed to do? Sit here and be negative and falling apart. And when I got diagnosed with my lungs, the nurse comes in, the urgent care, and she goes, "How are you holding it together?" I'm like, "For what?" She goes, "I'd be on the floor balled up, crying my eyes out over what? I'm not dead. I can't do anything about it. You're all the experts. Let's take care of this." And everyone's like, "Where do you get this attitude from?" And like you said, I get a choice every day to wake up and decide how I want to interact with the world. And if I can help people through my story, my message, the coaching I do, the hypnosis I do, then that's what I'm doing, because we're all are going to be in crazy situations. Don't think you're going to get to the end, retire, have an amazing life, have all this money, and then peacefully float off into the neverworld, right? Or whatever you believe. That would be great. But the amount of things that I've seen that happen in this world that don't go that way, live life for the day you have. That's why they call it the present, right? Because it is. And there's all these cliche things. And my thing is, listen, we're put on this earth for a purpose. Find your purpose, be passionate about it, and go out there and make a difference in other people's lives. And that's going to make a difference in your life. Because all this fear base, all this crap that we go through in life doesn't serve a purpose except to divide people, make them miserable, and it never produces a positive gain in their life.
Wow, that's some powerful stuff, man, Shawn. And now I remember why we connected so powerfully last time we talked, because you talk about a lot of the things that I live and breathe and teach. Right, things are going to happen to us. I believe everything happens for us, and everything's going to happen no matter whether you think it's great or not. So why not just have a good spirit and a good attitude through whatever you're going through? I know it's not always easy, but most of the time there's an option to choose happiness. Your car, you wreck your car. I mean, you can cry about that and hem and haw, or you can be like, okay, maybe when I go get my car fixed, I'll talk to someone who's, in our situation, maybe they're suicidal or maybe they're addicted, and the message gets through. That's how I look at everything now. And it's such a beautiful way to live life, instead of, I used to believe life was happening to me, and it would like piss me off when something didn't go my way. And now I'm just like, it's the universe's way, it's God's way, whatever you believe, just let it be, and just go along your merry way, because it's happening whether you're happy or whether you're pissed off.
Yeah, it's interesting because there are a lot of people who were like, "Oh, I need to get ahead," and every time I try to, something happens where the car breaks down or some appliance breaks, and the money that I was going to do this with is gone. And I'm like, "Listen, what you're doing, you make all your bills, right?" Like, yeah. I said, "Do you realize the same technique makes you super successful?" It's like, "What do you mean?" I said, "You're doing everything because you have to. You have to make the bills. How about if you start doing everything because you choose to? And when that little thing shows up as an extra bill you're not ready for, instead of being like, oh my God, I can't believe these things happen, be like, this is a test. How much more do I need? How much more do I want?" And go for it even more. Because once that wheel gets rolling, it's easy to keep going. I mean, you've seen people in sales. How come at the end of the month, everyone can hit their quota, and then beginning of the next month, they're all slow and burned out? Because they created that system. If you just keep doing it because you're passionate about it, it accumulates quicker than you're actually getting rid of it. And that's what I tell people. It's like, listen, you enjoy helping other people, right? Yeah. What do you do when someone tries to help you? No, I don't need help. I said, so you're taking away the same feeling from someone else that you get when you help someone. And they're like, ooh. I said, exactly. I said, you want to be super successful? As much as you give, receive 2 to 3 times more. Well, that's being greedy. I'm like, no, it's because then you can give 2 to 3 times more. I said, if you don't have your mental, physical, and spiritual health, then you have nothing to give to anyone else.
Yeah, what's the point? What's the point of having $10 million if you don't have those things? So, Shawn, so you use in your toolkit, you've got a big toolkit. One of the tools is hypnosis. Why do you use hypnosis, and what do you do with hypnosis?
So when we're born to age 10, we have no really choice in the information that's coming to us. We're just being bombarded by the way adults around us look at money, look at relationships, look at race, look at religion, and we're just absorbing it all. And we've had possibly some negative things happen to us. And they create this belief system that is true while it's happening, but not true because the past is not real. It's the past. It's memories that are stored in our brain. And those things can change every time you access them. And most of the time they get worse because we're looking at it worse. And we're bringing things up over and over. And we're living pain because we're choosing to. And we don't realize, like, I can take someone who's interested in doing hypnosis. They have to want it first. And they're perfectly safe. Go to a specific event. Disconnect the emotional connection to it. They can still observe it. They can talk about it freely, but their heart rate, their blood pressure never goes up, and they get to move on. Everyone talks about in business and in life this money issue they have. I'm like, no, it's actually self-worth. You believe exactly what you're getting. If you believe you're getting this, that's why you're getting it. So if we can look at certain things we call these filters that have happened in your past and can release those, then you can move on without even realizing that they were there.
Yeah, from age 0 to 7, we actually spend most of our time in a theta wave brain state, which is hypnotic state. So we are basically being hypnotized for the first 7 years of our life. And as you said, they're buried in your subconscious mind. So all the negative behaviors you have in your life right now that you can't figure out why, after all these coaches and dietitians and trainers you've been to, you can't lose weight, you can't stop drinking, you can't stop smoking. The answer isn't in, oh, you don't have willpower. The answer is between age 0 and 7 or 10, like you said, when you're in a hypnotic state, something was placed in there to help you get through a stressful time. And like you said, you're still connected to that event because your subconscious mind doesn't know the difference between yesterday and 30 years ago. So yeah, I believe, I'm certified in hypnosis as well. And I believe it's one of the best tools on the planet because that's where 95% of our behavior is driven by our subconscious mind. But we have most therapists in this world and life coaches and psychiatrists focusing on the conscious mind. And, oh, you have anxiety. Let's do some breathing techniques. No, you've low self-worth. Let's have you stand in the mirror and say, I'm worth it. So.
And again, the crazy thing is, if you think about how you and I were raised, we maybe had 3 channels growing up with an antenna on the roof, and we're outside doing things. The stimulus we had was completely different. And now you see an infant has got a tablet to play games, and then bingo, instead of talking in the car, they're in front of a video, or they have this going on. They're being bombarded far greater than we ever were with information that is just setting into that open mind like a sponge. And we wonder why people are super sensitive or have all these things happening. And then you take into consideration the chemicals that are in food, the lack of sleep, all these preservatives and additives bombarding the lack of the right gut health. All these things are playing a role in controlling hormones in our body. And people are like, well, how can I get better at this? I'm like, listen, I want you to be as healthy physically, mentally, emotionally, and spiritually as possible when we do our work. So if your sleep's off, if your digestion's off, if your hormones are out of balance, I'm working against all that, and so are you. So why don't we just do 5 simple things throughout the day to get all this stuff geared in? And that's why I created that 5-day challenge, is just do what you're doing a little bit better before we add anything else in, and ask yourself, why am I waking up at 6 o'clock? Why do I eat what I eat? Why am I not doing enough of this and too much of that? And don't change anything. Just, I tell people, this is what we're going to do for your sleep. You go to bed 30 minutes earlier and you get up 30 minutes earlier. They're like, huh? I said, we're not changing time. We're just changing when you get up and when you go to bed. It's the same amount of time you slept normally. Why do I feel better? Because your attitude and the reasons. And then I'm asking you to turn all your electronics off 30 to 45 minutes before you go to bed. So you allow your brain to relax and not be overstimulated.
So we'll tell you in a couple minutes how to pick up that 5-day challenge. But can you, you also mentioned last time we talked the pink elephant theory. I'm eager to hear about that.
So when someone says, don't think about the pink elephant, what do we think about? The pink elephant. So our conscious, subconscious, whatever we tell it not to do, it does.
Don't hit it if you're playing golf. Don't hit it in the water. It hears hit it in the
There
water.
goes the water. And when you say to someone, hey, I know what you don't want to do. Tell me what you want to do. And they're like, oh. And to reword those things is difficult because that's how they speak. And the one that really hits me is the word when I do something for someone or they do something for me and I say, hey, thanks. And they go, no problem. I'm going, why would it be a problem? It's just a word we say, no problem. Not my pleasure. There's a fast food chain out there that serves chicken and it's not open on Sundays, but I'm not going to say the name. When you say thank you, watch what they say to you. Listen to what they say to you. Look at how they say it to you. Their turnover rate is like 10%. There's a reason because their interaction is always positive. Is their product 100% healthy? Probably not. But it's the interaction we're having that sets the tone to where we go next. And I think that's the key, which people really need to tap into is how are you interacting with the world around you and how are they interacting with you? And you'll be quite shocked that the way you're interacting is what you're going to receive back.
Yeah, you kind of make the world you live in, right?
Exactly.
So tell us a little bit more about the 5-day challenge.
So I've watched so many people like, oh, you're going to do this, these different 75-day things. And I'm like, let's make this easy. Just first be aware of what you're doing. And then if you're drinking water, let's take it up a notch and watch how hydration makes you much sharper and less weaker. People are quite shocked. Oh, I drank water. I'm like, okay, measure it. So be aware, then measure everything. Are you really getting that amount of sleep? How many times did you wake up? What are you actually eating? Well, I eat. I'm like, okay, write it down. They're shocked. Like, oh my God, maybe I'm not, or maybe I'm having too much. What are you listening to? And are you reading anything? How is that having an impact on you? So that's the first 2 to 3 days. Then I'm like, how are you going to improve this? And they're like, huh? Like, just improve it a little bit. Do a little extra. Go for, instead of 15-minute walk, go for a 20-minute walk. Listen to a positive podcast. Smile at people. Let me know then on day 5 how you feel better than you did on day 1. They're shocked. And it's a simple thing of asking questions on different areas of their life, why they're doing what they're doing, and realizing the only factor that's the same is themselves in everything. You can't be super successful in business and then go home and have a crappy relationship with your significant other and kids. You have a crappy life. You just put all your effort here to make it look a particular way and you take it all home with you. But if you feel amazing and you take some more time for yourself, like a vacation, you're going to make more money. Everyone's like, you're crazy. It doesn't work that way. I'm like, okay, talk to all my clients. They've done it. They're super successful. They have more time for themselves. Their relationships are better. They're healthier. They're happier. And they've pulled themselves out of creating a job to now being an owner of their companies.
Yeah, one of my mentors I studied under said that she's never met a person that was a workaholic that had high self-esteem. So if you're working all the time and you want to check your level of self-esteem, again, just go to bradchandler.com/quiz, take the self-love quiz, and it will tell you your level of self-esteem. So Shawn, the 5-day challenge, can it really change someone's life without doing the deep dive into the subconscious negative limiting beliefs that they have, or are you doing this simultaneously?
No, it's interesting. I've had people go through the 5-day challenge on their own and they call me up and they're like, man, I just did this and it worked. This is incredible. And I keep doing it. I'm like, yeah, it does. Because what they do is become more self-aware. And there is a thing to listen to either hypnosis or do like a guided hypnosis meditation type thing.
Yep.
Do some breathing exercises. They just get quiet with themselves and allow themselves to be. And again, not everyone knows how to meditate or breathe. So I give some instruction with that, but I want people to realize that they're in control of this on their own. And then if there's certain issues that they want to work on, then we work on the subconscious, because Would it help them? Yes, but I want them to realize they can do this on their own first. And then when they ask for assistance, it just compounds the effect to make it even work better and faster.
Where can people find you and the 5-day challenge?
So if you go to my website, Shawn, ShawnAhuber.com, you can click right there, the 5-day challenge, put your information in, it's sent right over to you. You can start there. If you want to set up a call, there's a link there also to just have a free conversation about where you're at, where you want to go, because don't allow the outside world to dictate the actions you take to become more successful, because it really doesn't care.
Shawn, what is the greatest single life lesson that you've learned?
I would say do it because you're passionate about it and realize that you're going to struggle through all kinds of things. It's just be happy you have an opportunity to have a choice, because there are a lot of people in this world who don't. And be happy you have choices.
When you say do it because you're passionate, what's it?
That's the thing is, a lot of people are like, well, I got a job, but I really love doing this particular thing. And I'm like, well, type in that thing you love and check out how many people are making money doing it. They're like, what? I've got clients who've got amazing concepts that they were fearful to try. And I'm like, why? They're like, but. I'm like, the effort it takes you to go to work and do everything else is the same effort it takes to do this. Is it going to be easy? No, it's simple. You're going to have to work hard on it. I've had a friend who had an idea about connecting pet, like SPCA and stuff like that, like all these pet shelters together. She created petfinder.com and then sold it to Discovery for millions and millions of dollars through an idea. She just took what she was passionate about as animal welfare and created something amazing. Every business out there, everything we've done was a dream and an idea, and then we took action. If you're not passionate about it, don't do it.
Yeah. And you hear so many people like you say, well, I wish I had the money because I hate this job, just like you said. And there's very few things in this world that you can't make money doing. I was in real estate and still am. Thankfully, the company now runs without me. But I recognize, Shawn, in the last 3 years that I got into real estate just because I didn't feel worthy and I didn't feel enough. And I thought by building a bunch of money in a big company or making a bunch of money, I'd feel worthy. And that never works. And so now I have found my passion, and that's helping people overcome their limiting beliefs buried in their subconscious mind so they can live this incredible life with deep connections and health and wealth. And it is so amazing what you just said, because it's so true. If you are passionate about it, there's a bookcase behind me. It's got 50 books or so on there. And then I've got another 100 somewhere else because I've read so many books recently. But I could literally, Shawn, go sit on a beach, and for 6 to 8 hours a day, I could read these books on trauma, neuroscience, health, longevity, you name anything around this subconscious thinking, right? I could do that probably for the rest of my life and never get bored. So think about putting me against, I'm not a therapist, but I help people with anxiety, depression, addiction, bad marriages, all that stuff. Think about the person who came into the therapy world to get help for themselves and really doesn't care about their profession. I'm going to run circles around them because all I'd want to do is learn and absorb because I just love it. I love this. I could sit here with you, Shawn. We could talk for 24 until I pass out in this chair. I know you, and you are too. Like we could talk about, we could go on vacation. We could talk about this for days, right? It is so great waking up to something you love to do. And you have the opportunity to do the same thing. You just have to believe it.
Right. I have a guy that I'm about to do some work with. He's 82 years old. Him and I sat down. He's like, so how can I help you out? I'm like, well, you've got some great connections. I've got a program for baseball players because they burn out all the time. And he won the World Series 3 times in a row in the 70s, back to back. He was a pitcher. He pitched for 15 years. He worked for some major organizations as pitching coaches. His wife said, you need to have a conversation. And I said, how can I help you out? And he goes, interesting what you're talking about. He goes, I've got all this knowledge in my brain. And the only time I've ever worked is one-on-one. And now that I'm not coaching, I'm not doing it. And I said to him, I go, Daryl, if there were 1 million people watching this conversation right now and they each paid us $1, what would we make? He goes, $1 million. I said, you have that ability. He goes, I want to get this knowledge out there. So him and I are talking about doing a course together because he's so passionate about helping young people with baseball, of all the trials and tribulations and the expectations and the letdowns. He's like, let's do it. He's 82 doing something he's never done before. And he's so fired up about it. He's like, I'm going on vacation when I get back. And he's like, I meet my old World Series team and all these guys. And he's telling me about, like, back then you could be broke and be like the number one player in the league because no one talked about money and finances and what we should do and our memorabilia and how to sell it. He goes, it is mind blowing the amount of guys leaving baseball who are broke, who are professionals. He goes, I want to help them all out. I said, let's go. And that's the cool thing about doing what we do is, yes, there's all these people going through negative things that we can help, but there's so many people who've like, how do I get my message out there? And they're holding themselves back because they don't understand that their passion can make them everything in the world and also help a ton of people too.
Yeah, we just changed our company name from Brad Chandler Coaching to Limitless You because we believe everyone's limitless. They just have to get rid of those negative limiting beliefs that are holding them back. Well, Shawn, that was absolutely amazing. The last question, if you can answer, is if someone's listening to this, like who is the person that is best suited to work with Shawn?
So people who are exceptionally driven, who are like, how do I do this? And it's usually in a transition for a relationship, going into a business, wanting to do something different. So I've got 3 amazing coaches that work specific for sports, from baseball, soccer, equestrian. We're starting a new one for ballroom dancing. But mine are the high-end people who are just like, I want to fire all my employees. I want to get rid of all my clients because I'm burning out because I can't hold this stress anymore. And those are the CEOs of major corporations, executives, entrepreneurs who are just at their wits' end, and they're so high up that they're afraid to tell anyone they don't have it all together. That's really, because of being a hypnotherapist, I'm exceptionally confidential. Like, people have to give me permission to tell other people who I work with, because I want them to realize, like, it's okay to tell me what's really going on because this is between you and I. And once they realize they can trust you because they don't know who to trust anymore, it is such a relief. But the reality of it is they're no different than the person just starting out in business. They got just bigger problems because they got more money and more people are counting on them. So those are the ones who I'm like, it's okay. You're not alone. You can feel comfortable to have these conversations. And if I can't help you, this is my big thing. I'm going to find someone who's a better fit if it's not me, because you are looking. And if you don't get that help, it's me doing a disservice to you because I know you're looking. So if it's not me, it's someone else. And that's why I keep a tight network of great people that can help and are experts in other areas that I'm not, because I'm not the one all be all for everyone.
Yeah. Well, Shawn, that was awesome, man. The information was amazing. What you're doing is amazing. If you want to reach Shawn, again, Shawn A. Huber, we'll put it in the show notes. So thank you for being here, Shawn.
Appreciate it.
Until next time, that concludes another episode of How to Be Happier for Entrepreneurs. Remember, I'm trying to help 1 million people on this great planet before I leave it. And I need your help. I can't do this alone. So if you like this content, please rate it, please review it, please share it. Anything you can do to help us get the word out would be much appreciated. Until next time, remember, love heals all.
Hit subscribe if you don't want to miss out on more life-changing content. And if you're struggling, you don't have to. Go to bradchandler.com/contact. There, you can join the Facebook community of like-minded entrepreneurs, and you'll see a button to schedule your freedom and happiness call. See you on the next episode.